Hi, I'm Barbara O'Brien. I'm an animal trainer and photographer, and I'd like to welcome you to the Empathetic Trainer. Welcome, Dr. Susan Fay, to the Empathetic Trainer podcast. We are so glad to have you here today. We appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Well, I am, as always, honored if somebody reaches out to me, and I'm really happy to get the word out to anybody that wants to listen.
Well, that's great because we have a limited time, but we have a lot to cover because you've got some wonderful information to share with horse owners, which I believe applies to all of the animals in our lives, and it applies also to the people. So I think this is a good message that we really want to spread to anyone that, like you say, is ready to receive it, because that's a whole thing we're going to talk about. But let me do the formal introduction so that people know
Okay.
what we're doing here. Okay. Dr. Susan Fay is an internationally known speaker, clinician, equine consultant, and author of Sacred Spaces, Communion with the Horse Through Science and Spirit. She has an educational background in psychology and environmental science, but believes she has learned the most valuable life lessons from her horses. I want to say that almost any true lover of horses is going to agree with you on that point. That we learned everything, the most important things from horses. So I'd
Yes,
have to agree with you there.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, well, what I like to start off with is kind of like, how did this happen? What I mean happen is, how did you fall in love with horses, and why are horses your life? And we have to talk about Morgan horses because I have 6 of them. And so, sorry, breed bias here, but we have to talk a little bit about Morgans before we're done. Uh, I just put a thing on Facebook. I was wondering, is it genetic, or where does it come from that some of us are just born knowing we have to be around horses? Some of us don't even get that opportunity, but we are born knowing it. I didn't get to be around them till I was 12 or 13 when I was old enough to work for my lessons. But like, my parents didn't have them, they weren't horse people, da da da. Did that happen to you, or were you exposed later? Were you exposed early? Were you just, how do people, are we born this way? This is just a question I have, and I'd like to hear about how you started out with horses.
I believe we're born this way because I believe my first conscious thought as an infant was horses. I had to speak in order to ask questions about horses, but like you, my parents did not have anything to do with them, and nobody in my family did. So I was the oddball, and I was just obsessed. That's all I thought about for my entire childhood. And then I probably bugged my father enough that at 9 years old, when we moved up to the mountains, we could have a horse, and that's what I got. So that shut me up, at least for them. I could just go out and spend time with my horse and be perfectly happy.
Well, I understand that. I think horses and children are so good for each other. They benefit, of course, boys and girls equally, but especially young girls, I think, learn to have a voice with horses.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk more about that. But so you were a horse kid, and then what happened?
Well, then, of course, your parents tell you you have to have a real job and you have to have a real career because there's no money in horses. And I believe that was more true back in the 60s when I was growing up in the 70s, that you didn't see a whole lot of women, especially out there doing anything equine in a big way other than a few trainers out there. But things were so different then, and really I don't believe I would have been able to make a living in the horse world, where it would have been really difficult back then. So of course then I went into the other love, which was being outdoors and all that. So I decided to study environmental science, and so that kept me connected to nature and outside, and but it also put me more in the human world than I would have liked, and all the politics and everything that comes with participating in that type of profession. So I really miss the horses. I always kept them on the side. I'd have horses and I'd do riding whenever I could, but I didn't really get a chance to explore it in a big way until I got married and we moved to a ranch, and then I could have my Morgan horses and start doing a little bit of a breeding program and riding and all of that. So that was my progression.
Oh, sure. Sure. I totally get that. I eloped with my husband so I could have a horse. So I was lucky to get my first horse. I mean, when I was 19. So still same husband, still Morgan horses. So
Oh,
pretty blessed there. But I get that. It was like you had to have them in your life and you had to make it work somehow. And
mhm.
by having the great relationship, I hope, and you got to do that when you were, younger, as opposed to a lot of women have to give up and wait and wait and wait until they decide either it's too late, which I think it's never too late, or they get into them, which is great. But I wish everybody who wanted to, who was born with it, had the opportunity. I wish we could make that so. so uh,
Absolutely.
okay, so you went to school for environmental studies. What I found so interesting, let's talk about your book, because this was everyone can we see if I get it in focus here. I don't know how to make it focus on the camera, but it's called Sacred Spaces: Communion with the Horse Through Science and Spirit. And this was a really deep and good and interesting read, because it talks so much about uh, how we can have a, a brain science connection almost, and a heart science connection. Because there's a lot of people who are kind of like, oh, that's all what Warwick Schiller, one of our favorite horse people, calls woo, and it's like this is all supernatural and da, da, da. And but there, and he also agrees with you that there's definitely a science behind all of this. Now, how did you stumble? Whoops, sorry. How did you come across like mixing what you felt intuitively, what we felt, with fact? Because some people don't believe in just how things feel; they want hard facts. How did you come across that? What happened that happened?
It was interesting because on the ranch and I was interacting with the horses, it was really natural. And I just felt like I spoke to them and they did the things. And uh, when it came time and I was divorced, and I thought, you know what? In order to bring this to the world in a bigger way, I feel like it's very important to bring the science into it
Mm-hmm.
so that it doesn't just get put into a particular box and then perhaps people don't look in that box necessarily because it says woo or something like that on it and people go, ooh, I don't want that box. And I thought, we need to really look at what is really happening inside of us. And why is this happening? And I was always so curious about that, even since I was about 12 years old, studying the brain and these kind of things about optimizing our brain function. And it's not usually a 12-year-old deal, but for me, it
Mm-hmm.
was fascinating. And as I began to go out there and interact more in the horse world, I realized that people were struggling with things that could be fixed very simply by understanding your brain and your body and how you're really communicating energetically. So that really stuck me in to this place where I've got to know more. And can I teach that to somebody? Can I teach these same things to someone else? And when I wrote Sacred Spaces, the book, I was introducing people to this idea that there was something scientific to the woo, that we could actually use energy or have energetic awareness and actually find better communication and connection to communion with our animals. So that was really, really important to me, especially I think as an older woman going out there and trying to have your voice heard.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed real important to have the science and to go, if I was at some gathering or and somebody confronted me, I was like, I don't believe that, it doesn't work, I could say exactly what I did internally to create the thing that presented in the horse. So
Okay,
um,
well, let's talk about that. When you say something you created internally to present to the horse, what does that mean for someone that does not have any background or understanding yet? Like you could break it down
yeah,
to the simplest.
right. And really what we're doing, we are energetic beings just like horses. That's why we can do this particular thing. But when we have a thought, when we have an emotion, we create a particular energy signature. It's like a frequency in our body that aligns with our thought and our emotion, and then it broadcasts that information out into the space around us. A little bit like a radio station. If you dial to a particular station, you know what you're going to get. And that station is a frequency, 97.3 FM.
Mhm.
You go to that frequency and you always get that station. And our bodies work the same way. We can create different frequencies with an understanding of where am I going and what am I now broadcasting. So in a kind of a simplistic way, again, every thought, every emotion aligns to create our radio station that we're on at that moment. And having an awareness of what's going on gives us a lot more power in our lives to choose what station we're playing. So a lot of times
Wow.
I've noticed people are not aware of their internal life, what's going on inside their body. And so they may switch channels all the time. And if you think about it, in between each radio station is a whole lot of static.
Mhm.
And so that's what the horses are hearing from people that are not aligned with their thoughts and their emotions, and they just go interact with the horse. And maybe they're on a station for a while and then they get distracted and they go to some other station, and in between there's a lot of static, and the horse is trying to understand what they're saying, but they can't because it's a bad connection or an
Right. Is it a
inconsistent
form of being,
connection.
sorry, is it a form of being
No,
incongruent? You know, like incongruent, like,
absolutely.
I've gotten in a fight with my husband or something, right? And then I go outside and I'm, ugh, you know, whatever, right? We haven't resolved it till later. And I'm going to go be with my horses now. And I go out to I would go out to my horse and then go like, oh, I'm fine, you know, but I wasn't fine. And then that's confusing for the horse, correct? Because like they say, leave it behind. You know, you out to the barn, you leave it behind you. You go. Wouldn't it have been better if I went out and said, well, I just got into a fight and I'm still kind of crabby about it. I'm with you now, and you know, I'm sure we're going to work this out and whatever. But this is how I'm feeling, and I can sort of identify the station, like you're saying, that I'm on, and then like just being aware instead of trying to cover up or push down or be different. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Absolutely. You
Okay.
coined it perfectly. Yes. And, like you say, horses know when we're not congruent. And we can say something on the outside and not be meaning that on the inside. Our body's speaking a different language then,
The same thing works for
right?
fear then, because they'd say like, don't show
Mm-hmm.
them you're afraid. You know, this was don't show me you're afraid,
Right.
because then they're gonna, what are you afraid of? And you know, or because horses don't realize we're afraid of them, you know.
You're right.
And
Exactly.
so, but if you can acknowledge, because I'm just learning, this is all new for me. You know, the last couple of years, I don't know if you know, but I've been an animal actor trainer since the 80s, right? So I work with animal actors, but I've never given my horses the consideration that I've given the dogs, the cats, the chickens, you know, the things that I'm working with, in like understanding their brains and how they think and whatever. I haven't taken the time because they don't work as much, you know. They're not
Right.
modeling as much as the dog. And it has been mind blowing to discover people like you and Carrie Lake and Mary Corning. Luckily, we had them on the podcast as well, and it was wonderful. And people like Warwick Schiller and others who are really helping change how we view our relationships with horses, which I think is going to be so much better for horses. Um, and so, thank you for your part in that. So what is your suggestion then? Like, for instance, someone is, I run into this with a Morgan horse. I got 3 Morgan horses from out west. They hadn't been handled a whole lot. They were treated well, but just not handled, all young. And the 4-year-old that came was really defensive and anxious when she first arrived, which caused me to be afraid of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to have a whole mind shift and some help with what you're talking about, telling her I'm afraid, you know, and it really changed things because I visualized differently how I want the relationship to be and gave her all the time she needed to feel safe with no agenda. And now she's discovered that scratching her butt is like the most favorite thing in the whole world. And so she'll tell me, please do that. And we have this, we can do things you say something about how going slower is going faster. You have it phrased
Hmm.
really beautifully, but I'm talking too much. I need to get back to you, but I'm
No,
just saying
you're fine.
it helps so much. Your book helps so much with me telling her how I feel and then working through the feelings with her. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm really about us having awareness again of where is our body, where is our mind, and can we get in congruence, and can we actually choose how we want to feel in the moment. So it's okay to go in if you're a little bit upset and tell your horse, yes, here's where I'm at today. But then what can you do to switch that? And
Exactly.
that's what I focus on. It's like we're going to choose which radio station we're going to play at each moment to support the horse in what they're going through or support our interaction. And so again, I have to get into a little bit more explanation about this because in this energy field, a lot of people are what they're doing is sending a horse an energy.
Hmm.
They go, oh, I think that horse is afraid. I'm going to send him relaxation. No, we don't need to do any of that. We are a model for our horses. I keep all of my energy right next to my body and I switch my channel. And just remember back in the analogy of the radio station, I don't have to go blast that out to the horse. But if that horse were interested in the radio station that I'm playing, they will come and come closer, or they will come and go, oh, I'm going to listen to that one. And just like music, when it plays, you play music, and then all of a sudden you're captured by the music and you're in the feel of that music. Same way that this energy is working. I just have to switch myself. I don't have to worry about it. I just look at the horse, go, wow, I think you're struggling and you're a little anxious. Let me model for you what the opposite of that is: safe, comfortable, relaxed, grounded. And that's all I have to do. And then the horse will copy or entrain to that feeling that I've just modeled. It's
Wow.
it's a whole different concept of what a lot of people are doing with energy. And
Yeah.
what is really good is that we want to keep our energy within ourselves. I don't send my energy out. I don't take any on. Therefore, I'm a closed system in terms of my energy field, and I don't get depleted. And it's it's like I said, it's a very different concept than a lot of people are teaching out there as far as the energy work goes. I don't even call it energy work because I'm not working. I am just aware. So I'm changing it to, instead of energy work, energy awareness, that
Okay.
I'm going to know what to do to support that animal.
Okay. So for someone who's new to this, then, and if there's energy awareness, so how do we? I mean, some people that came to them and they are just natural with the horses and like they get it and they can't even explain it. Like you're good at explaining it. I mean, they're doing it, but you're really good at explaining it. Besides having the science behind it. How does the average person who's doesn't know, like, for instance, me, I'm going to go out there. What would you recommend? I'd like to learn. How do I learn how to do this? Because this is
Right,
fascinating. So,
right. And this is part of my program. The Sacred Spaces book was where I'm working from. It's the
mhm.
overview of what I'm doing. But now when I go and I change mine from clinics to gatherings to give it a different feel. I teach the people the ways that we communicate energetically and get them in touch with that. And one of my foundational things that I do is breathing. There's a very specific way that I breathe
Hmm.
to communicate things to the horse and to actually provide myself with a quick reset of my entire system. So let's say I get anxious or this horse did something and all of a sudden I feel anxious and I feel that anxiety in my chest and my body tightens and all these things. Well, this breathing that I do will reset you back to your relaxation place. So it is also, when I teach people the breathing, it's to actually be able to hold and maintain a particular energy frequency that you're doing. And it goes along with a body scan, which is super important of knowing, what does my body feel like when I'm playing a particular radio station? That's all
Huh.
you need to know. What does my body feel like? And would the feeling that I have in myself be what I would want my horse to experience? Would that be helpful? So, for example, we'll go back to safety and comfort. I'm breathing, first of all, consistently, regularly, smoothly, full body breathing, not just breathing from my stomach or my heart or some other place. I'm breathing fully through my entire body because my breath is my energy field. And so I want to know where it's at every moment and what it's saying. And then I become aware of where my energy is by scanning my body internally every time I take a breath and go, okay, oh, some tension just came up here.
Hmm.
I need to breathe that out. And then when we create a frequency, say we're going to go for an anxious horse, safety and comfort as my energy that I'm going to try, I go through my body and go, okay, I'm scanning my body. Yes, my feet feel grounded. Yes, I feel complete relaxation in my fully throughout my body. Yes, I feel warm here. I feel like my brain has stopped moving. I feel present. All of these things are things that we're doing somatically to notice, okay, good, I'm set. Now I can communicate this to my horse with clarity. And I stay in that. And I just breathe. And I stay in that feeling of the safety and comfort. And pretty soon you see the horse releasing and relaxing. Um, and it's a little more complicated, not too complicated, but I walk people through the ability to create these different frequencies that will support the horse. And you will get instant feedback from the horse on whether or not that's something that's helpful or not helpful for them. So
Okay.
that's the great thing. It's an instant
Yeah.
feedback mechanism too.
Right. Does it, the average person, this is something they'd have to practice, right? We can't just walk out there and it doesn't come, I mean, because doesn't our brain get distracted and it's really hard to
Right.
like get into that space too? I mean,
Yes, and
it can
that's
be learned though, right? You can learn it.
right. And absolutely, and that's what the breathing is that I do is for. It's to get us into alpha brainwave, which I talk about in my book, which is a
Right.
relaxed and focused. It's a waking meditation that you can do once you get into this breathing, and you can be in a waking meditation, and you can go about your life, and you can switch channels, and you can do all of this stuff, and that waking meditation will keep you in that state that we all do when we sit for hours and meditate. We can do in about 2 minutes with
Mhm.
this or less. You can train your body once you get the breathing down to stay in a waking meditation all of the time. That's what people ask me. Well, when do you do this breathing? All of the time. It has changed my life. Okay. Because I can stay present, focused, relaxed, and have alpha brainwaves, which are optimum for the horse, and
Mhm.
I can have awareness. All of the things that, we're trying to do through hours of meditation, we can do if we practice this breathing through just a few minutes, and it becomes our life.
So this can apply
So,
to how we're dealing with our other animals, obviously. I mean, I
absolutely.
know it. I know that when I work with cats, I mean, there has to be a regulation of my emotions. There's dogs put up with an awful lot, and people
Mm-hmm.
yell at their dogs, and it used to be really awful where you hit your dog, things like that. Right? Dog would come back. A cat would never tolerate. Right? So of course I'm kind to dogs and regulated with dogs,
Right.
but cats are very sensitive as well, and there's no pushing them around or forcing anything. And so it has to be this quiet energy and expectation that, of course, in my case, of course, you're going to want to sit there and have your picture taken and wear this Halloween costume and smile because you're going to get turkey and you love turkey and we're going to pet you and you're going to feel because we all are like, you look at how wonderful you are. And the cat feels that, and
Mm-hmm.
so measure, it's like adding my energy of, well, holding that space, I guess, of energy with the cat that you're going to enjoy this. And, because I don't force animals to do something they don't want to do. We choose them for their
Right.
temperament. I don't put a cat up there that's not happy. I wouldn't, it would
Right.
take a long, why do that? So we don't. But the ones that love it, and they can feel all how everyone around them is like, wow, that's really cool. And then he feels even better. Does that make sense? And then he sits even
Yes.
taller and even prouder. And, so no negative people on set. Everybody has to be on the same
Yeah.
happy place. Is that why a horse can be very comfortable with you, but somebody else walks up and that energy directed out of, you're going to do this and grab them, right?
Right.
So people need to practice this place that you're talking about of being, I guess, regulated and calm and meditative, and put your phone away because the minute your phone does
Right.
something, you've lost your right. You've lost your breathing and concentration, and that's when the horse goes, "I think I'll step on your foot" or whatever it is.
Right. Right.
Because you're not present. Because we want to be present, and same thing with children or people we're talking to. So
Hmm.
it's a good life lesson, not just for horses, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And I believe I came at this because I went and studied human psychology because I felt like that might be at my age, might be the direction I need to go, that maybe horses were not going to be my final destination. Yeah, right. But in that, everything that I do and everything that I teach people has something for the horse to learn and the person. And every technique, if you wanted to call that, or thing that I show somebody, there's a place that, okay, you're going to practice your breathing, you're going to practice your meditation, and the horse is going to practice this other thing. So everything I developed has something for the horse and something for the human, and the goal is to bring us all closer to communion through those simple exercises or techniques that I use. And after you master them, it's not like you have to go out and do this long drawn out thing with every single animal you come to. If you practice these things as a human and you get good at these energy frequencies and the energy knowing and awareness place, you would not have to, you can walk up to any horse, any cat, any dog, and it's different, any person.
Hmm.
Um, and I wanted to expand this kind of in behind the scenes. It's an attempt maybe to get people to be more empathetic and to have more awareness of how they're dealing with other humans. So this
Yes.
is not just a horse program or a horse thing over here that I'm doing. Sacred Spaces is not called some kind of horse training. It's an all encompassing kind of a thing where as we change, everything in our life begins to change to align with the energy. And we're starting to be able to choose how we want to feel in a moment. And if we don't feel that way, we have a mechanism or method to get back to ourselves and to what we want to be experiencing. So
That's
that's kind of my,
wonderful. No, it's
yeah.
it's wonderful. You say that we need to be in this world in a more meaningful way, and I think that's what you're talking about, presenting
Mm-hmm.
ourselves in a more meaningful way where we can be helpful. I think it was
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl who the meaning of or man's search for meaning in his book. The idea part of it was. Um, our job is to end suffering whenever possible, but if we can't end it, don't add to it. And it seems
Right.
to me that there's so much anger and separation and negativity and like crabbing at people in traffic or being mean to a clerk or whatever. We all could work so much more on having uh, more empathy, kindness, being present. And it's not about us. They might just be having a bad day. Let's not make their day worse.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Right.
what you say
Right.
about being in this world in a more meaningful way is a wonderful message because then everything benefits from it, and ourselves included. Because we don't want to run
Yeah.
around hurting people. That makes us feel terrible. So you talk about, I just want to quote, although I would like the sacred space principles to reach a broader audience, I understand that not everyone is ready. And that's so sad in a way, isn't it? And if you could
It
expand
is.
on that for us, please.
I think, especially within the horse world, it's almost in the mass consciousness maybe of horse people that we have to deal with these animals in a particular way, that we have to show dominance, that we have to do these particular training this way and that way. And I, as I've gone around, I know there's some people that they say, "Oh, I want a different way," and they can't really do it. Or you see that they're not really invested in it because maybe it's too much work or they don't think they can do it. And so they fall by the wayside and then go back to the, what's known is, okay, we can get this horse to do this thing through dominance. Yes, that will always work. But what if you didn't have to? But what if that required that you had to work a whole lot on yourself
Mm-hmm.
to get there? And that's, I think, when I say not everybody's ready. Because when they realize, even though the things that I show you are simplified and you can get to these, they take work. They're simple, but they're not easy. And it takes some practice. And a lot of people, we're so used to this idea of instant results. I want to see that trainer come out and instantly change that horse. And that's what we've been shown. And so that's again in our mass consciousness that it's going to happen overnight. And as I study the brain and the people's emotions and horses' emotions, we don't just get over something that fast.
True.
There's more time and there's has to be consistency in our environment to support the change we're trying to make. And this is true with the horses. If you decide, oh, I want to be nice sometimes, and then you put the horse back with other people that are abusing it or that go back to dominant stuff with it, it's going to be really confusing for that horse. So I always think too in this place, are we ready? Is our environment ready to support a change to a different way of doing things? And I think this is one of my biggest, I would say, I don't want to use the word frustrations of going, okay, humans, they're just so set in their ways sometimes, and they don't take to new ideas very readily sometimes. There's a small group that usually jump on right away, but then there's the people going, well, yeah, I don't know, I got to stick to my old way of doing things, and they revert back. So yeah, that's a big challenge, I think, when for all of us, because we think everything's supposed to be easy and instant. And the things that are really meaningful take attention and time and dedication.
Oh, absolutely true. When I first started this journey, before I got my three little Morgan fillies from Montana, I'm over in Wisconsin, so it was a journey. But whole other podcast on Montana Morgans. But anyway, I had lost my heart horse. You know, we all have our heart horse, and he died of old age. And so I had sought out this another horse during the pandemic when horses were hard to come by and very, very expensive. And I found this mare that I could get in a price range, but she had a lot of anxiety and issues and, stuff that she brought to the table. And I was following, learning some of these new things, but I was going way too fast. Like I did, well, this will work. This will work. I'll skip that. This will work. And I made a lot of mistakes on not really listening to her anxiety and understanding. Like, well, I can swing a leg over you and I can do this and I can climb on you from the fence. So that means you're ready for this next step. And she wasn't at all. I mean, the underlying anxiety. And I thought I was only half hearing what was being taught, half understanding what you're talking about because I was in a hurry. My horse died. I want to ride a horse, blah, 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 right? And I got, I was riding her with bareback with a halter in the paddock just to, because this is how we start out. Just going to start with she was broke, but it was like restarting, right? And either she was in pain or the anxiety level threshold was too high, whatever. She bucked and everything, and not being a kid anymore. I landed on my pelvis, broke it in 3 places. Had a helmet, so I didn't get a bad concussion. But it just shook me to the core because I never blamed the horse. I blamed myself, and I had to go back and go, wait a minute, you're not really doing what you think you're doing. You think you're doing this understanding, this connection, da da da. Obviously, you're not listening. She said, no, you're not going to ride me right now. She said it the only way she could. So it had to really go back because even it takes a lot longer, like you said. So with the new Montana mares, completely different mindset about how I was going to approach them. And it is transformative because I'm finally taking the time, whatever time they need. The anxious horse took 7, 8 months to get to where we could, get her relaxed about picking up her feet or simple things like that, where the trust got built. And it's amazing because
Yeah.
by going slow, I'm going fast. Exactly what you talk about. So,
Right. And once you understand the frequencies and what you're broadcasting and how you can, I hate to use the word speed up that process, but you can get through that anxiety and stuff in a very short amount of time. But part of what this is the ability to identify trauma and in the horse and know what to do when you see that. And again, a lot of the slowness in the process is having to go back and address the trauma places and
mhm.
have the horse release those. And that takes more time than if you started out all good at the beginning. But this is what people are not understanding. Sometimes they go, well, we would like to do your process, but it takes too long. And I'm saying, no, it actually goes much faster. But the reason it looks like it takes a long time is because when I go do a clinic or a gathering and these horses come in, they have such volumes of trauma stored in their body that we need to have a mechanism to help to let that go before we can communicate anything to that
Right.
horse or
No,
teach them
exactly.
anything, right?
Right. They can't learn when
Because
they're anxious. Yeah.
no, because they've got a distraction there. My anxiety is making me shut down my brain and I can't focus on what you're saying.
Mhm.
And so that's what I've been developing over the years is these techniques or ways that we can ask the horse certain questions and have them start to release their trauma in a faster way. And again, our breathing it goes back to our ability to hold the breath, excuse me, the breath that we are doing, that we hold a safe space for them to release their trauma. And this is super important.
Yes.
And so a lot of times I can go in, I've narrowed it down to asking the horses 4 main questions when I come in with them. And it's like the 4 agreements. It's like
Mhm.
4 questions. I'm going to ask this horse. And when I come into that space, I'm going to ask them those. And they're going to tell me where their trauma is stored. And they're going to show me all of the stuff. And I'm going to show them how to align their body and connect their mind to their body, because a lot of horses are not connected
Mhm.
through their body to their mind. And especially if they get stressed, they disconnect their mind from their body and then they
Yeah.
become reactive. So I'm going to go through with some questions that I ask the horse before I get on, and it's going to show me where the trauma is, if they need anything to release. And if you go through those questions on a regular basis, you can streamline that connection and trust issue almost instantaneously. I mean, I've seen go in and ask these horse questions, and they're like, "I'm with you. I'm on you. I'm good." And
Wow.
so this has been my goal over the last few years is just first of all, how do I identify trauma in a horse? Do I know what to do with that? Can I identify what's going on? And what am I going to do with that? And
Mhm.
so that was what I was really glad that I did is study psychology, and actually my dissertation was on trauma. And so I wasn't interested in going in that field with humans at all, but I
Mhm.
realize now in retrospect that was part of my preparation for what I'm doing now, is that I
Oh,
had to
exactly.
understand trauma.
Well, doesn't trauma manifest itself the same way in most mammals? I mean,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
when we worked with young people, young women especially, who've had adverse childhood experiences and
Mm-hmm.
trauma, the right horse could be found to be so healing for them to be able to learn to even identify emotions. Uh,
Right.
so that's kind of a different purpose, but it's just the opposite when we're helping the horse with their trauma. And I find that like because we're animals as well, we're
Mm-hmm.
mammals, so the things work. And I find that the ways of regulating ourselves affect all the animals that are around. I have a flock of sheep. There's like 6 or 7, so a small little flock, and I adore them beyond words. It's not even. It's so. I just love them so much. But once I started learning about how horses handle trauma, I could see the same signals in sheep because they're animals that get chased. You know,
Hmm.
sheep do not have as much
Right.
defenses. And so I found ways of regulating my. Although I got along with my sheep really well, I could go into a strange flock, and because I can stay in the place you talk about, the sheep will approach me where they normally would never do that because human beings can be, you're pushing us around, whatever. They're not tame like mine. And it blew me away that it works, that you can do that
Right.
with other mammals. And I love that. And so I'm going to keep practicing that so that I can be better
Cool.
with all the animals I get to meet, because it certainly works with children. I mean, why would a child
Hmm.
approach you if you're giving off that horrible energy of I'm going to grab you and smother you, or I don't like
Exactly.
children, stay away from me? They're pretty intuitive. They know.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Wow, that's
Absolutely.
really cool. Okay, I want
And
to. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to add on to that. My dissertation was all about adverse childhood experiences and its effect on our health in adulthood. And uh, you could look at that in terms of horses. They have adverse foal experiences
Yes.
that affect them throughout their life and affect their mental and physical health. So that's really where I'm coming from. A lot of what I do is coming from that place. And how can we build in resiliency? How can we change that trajectory? And I find it easier in horses than it is in people. So just wanted to add that.
No, this is true. Well, gosh, this has been so informative. And we're going to talk about how people can get in touch with you and come to your workshops, find your website, which is a wealth of information. We'll have all this on the show notes as well. Where to get your book. I recommend it to everybody. But now we're to the part of the show where we do. I sent you some questions, but I gotta hold these up because we call this the cookie break or snack break. So there's chocolate chip cookies here from it's from my crew. They won't work otherwise. I have to make sure we
Oh,
have a. If you were here, we'd be feeding you. Okay.
oh, okay. Well,
Well, this is Wisconsin. That's what we do.
I noticed that. That's why I love going to the mid. I don't know what you do. Are you considered Midwest? But
Oh yes,
I always
Midwest.
get good food. Oh,
Yeah,
it's all,
no,
all lovely.
and heavy, rich, good butter food.
Yeah, good, like comfort food.
Exactly. Well, it's cold here, just like there in the mountains. It's
Yeah,
cold, so it's supposed to snow later
exactly.
today. So, but we're gonna. I sent 5 questions, and I borrowed those questions from Tim Ferriss's book, Tribe of Mentors, because they're wonderful questions to ask during an interview. And so you got to pick out from a list of 20 questions that you'd like to ask. So we're just gonna jump right into those. Okay?
All right. Well, I guess I didn't. Did I get that? I don't
Oh,
know.
you
I
did. You
didn't see
sent it.
that.
You were like so efficient because you sent it right away.
Did I?
So, yeah,
Oh,
you're.
well, then
You
tell me which one I asked.
there you go. All right. So the first question is, what is the most valuable thing that you put your time into that has changed the course of your life?
Wow. It was understanding myself and who I am inside and out. And really, I think through all the struggles that we go through, but to have that awareness of, wow, I just got triggered by that, or this is what I'm feeling in this moment, and have the ability to think about it and change it if I want to. It's been one of the biggest things. And I do that all through the breathing.
Mm,
And yeah, so imagine that we've been breathing our whole lives, and breathing in the proper way in the full body has changed my life immensely,
wow.
and that of horses and animals that I interact with.
Well, we all breathe, so it's something we can work on. I mean, what a simple
Right,
thing to start with, right? It's kind of, that's
right.
the whole thing. Okay. Do you have a mentor? And what did that person do that helped you? I'm sorry. Do you have a mentor? And what did that person help you discover about yourself?
When I talked about earlier, my mentors, I had many. And really, my greatest mentors were my horses because they taught me everything I need to know. And the same thing with being out in nature. Those were all my mentors. And if I had a question, I could ask them. And it's interesting that I did have some human mentors that showed me things like how to ride, but really the important life lessons came from my horses. And I was writing, I just finished a handbook on my breathing and I'm putting it together and somebody asked, well, where are your references? Which scientific study are you quoting and why are you doing this? It's like, well, I think in my reference list, it's going to be the names of the horses that influenced me
I
because
love
they
that.
taught me that. Um, and it was that they gave me the validation, not that I have to be validated by, oh, someone else did a study and they said this same thing. Oh,
Mhm.
then you're validated. How about I practiced this thing and it worked on my horse and he validated it for me?
Sure. I love that. I think we all have horses like that in our lives. Um, what inspires and motivates you to do what you do? And what is your true purpose in the world?
What inspires me to do what I do is the horses. And a lot of times people think, well, you're probably pretty extroverted if you're out in this world, but I'm super introverted and I'd be happy to be on my ranch doing just horses. So I'm inspired to go out because I'm doing it on behalf of the horses. I can put my pants on and my big girl pants on and take a lot of criticism or a lot of negative feedback because I go, well, yeah, but I'm doing this for the horses and their best interest at heart. And I can take a lot for the team. And I will go out there and, to the best of my ability, help people learn what the horses are trying to teach us. And so they are my inspiration. There was a second part to that question. Was there?
What you, I think you answered too. What is your true purpose in the world? Which is
Okay.
to make things better.
And I think that's it. And it's interesting that throughout my life till I was about 60, had no idea what my purpose was. And I struggled with that a lot. And maybe some women go through their lives and you've done things for other people and you end up at a place where you go, well, what was my purpose? And really it is to go out and speak what the horses want me to say
Hmm.
on their behalf. And that is my purpose. Because in the process, I believe they're trying to help us as humans to evolve.
Oh, I love that. That's a really great thought. I mean, that's really beautiful thinking about that because they're so giving. I just
Mhm.
and so horses and all of us are lucky that you are doing this, and we're grateful for you.
Mm,
Appreciate
thank
that.
you.
What is the luckiest thing that ever happened to you?
The luckiest thing. And that's an interesting question. Would it be about me or would it be about beyond me? So the luckiest thing for me was when Warwick Schiller's found my book on his kitchen table and then started speaking about it.
That's wonderful.
But really the luckiest thing was that people would listen then, and then I could have a voice for the horses. That was the luckiest day. And it opened up my heart because I'm thinking, wow, I had so many things to say on their behalf, and I wasn't being heard before he opened up those doors. And so
That's
I'll be
wonderful.
eternally grateful.
That's funny that you mentioned Warwick Schiller because was the first horse person in this vein that I started following, and I would listen to his podcast and learned about all of you wonderful people. He has a great podcast, and
Hmm.
the reason I have a podcast is I really want to be on Warwick's podcast to tell him how my whole view of training animals and animal actors and horse, how everything has changed and shifted based on what I started learning through him and now others. And I thought, well, Warwick doesn't know me. He's not going to have me on his podcast. I said, I'll just start my own podcast. See, and that's exactly how it happened because I wanted to get this message out and share it with others. And by having people
Right.
like you, hopefully we can keep growing and get this message out. And if one horse's life is better for it. One dog, one cat, and in my heart, one child. I think we're
Yes.
doing something good, you know? So again, grateful that you're here and grateful for your message.
Oh,
And that's funny how at work, if you're listening, we both say thank you. So,
I know. Yeah. I mean, I'll always be so indebted and thankful and grateful for the opportunities, probably not just for me, but for all of the horses and all of the people that get to go on that and speak their truth and open up people's minds and hearts to a different way.
exactly.
It's
Wow.
just
Well, there you go. That's our
fabulous.
testimony for work, Schiller.
Yeah,
I'm
there
sure
we
he
go.
won't mind.
Yeah.
You'll
No,
have to
probably
send him a
he'll be
note.
okay.
You have to send him a
There we
note. Hey,
go.
we talked about you.
Real, he probably can hear. He can
Oh, there
hear
you go.
somewhere.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. What did you
Yes.
want to be as a child, and how close did you get to that dream?
Well, I actually wanted to be a jockey. Well, the first thing I wanted to be a cowboy or
Oh, me too, a
cowgirl, whichever,
cowboy.
you know. And you know, you go through your life and they tell you, no, those boxes aren't available to you. So here's your boxes you can choose from. And it cracks me up that I'm finally living actually a dream I couldn't have even have imagined as a child. Like there was not even a box that said, someday you'll be working energetically with horses. And do you want to check that box? Oh, yes, please. No,
Right?
that wasn't even in my consciousness anywhere. But to be able to spend every day with horses or speaking with horse people or doing something in that vein, oh my God, what more can you ask for in your life?
Oh,
That's as
exactly.
close to my dream that I can get.
That's wonderful. And like I said, we're glad to have you. Would you like to share with us now how we can find you? We're going to have these notes there too, but we may as well say them. And what any this podcast, you know, they live forever, so we could put a current event, but it may pass by the time. But
Right.
you do hold. What did you call them? That they're not workshops, but you had a word
Gather. I'm going to call
gathering.
them
I love it.
gatherings.
Gathering.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you are coming back to Wisconsin. You were in Madison last year, right? So are you coming back to Wisconsin?
I believe I'll probably be back this year.
Yay! 'Cause then
Yay. So
I'm
you'd have to,
definitely gonna make that trip to come see you.
oh, good.
Um, so please just go ahead and share like how we find you and where we can find your book and all this good stuff that you
Okay.
have.
And you can find me. It's the easiest to go to Dr. Susan Fay, Fay. It's DrSusanFay.com, and that's my website. And
Mhm.
there'll be ways you can contact me through my website. You can email me on there. You could set up a session if you're interested in doing that. Uh,
Okay, so
there's
when
a
you set up
link.
a session, I'm sorry, let's talk about your
Oh, go
sessions.
ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
you tell us about your sessions, please.
Oh, I do some virtual sessions online, and it's funny because it works sometimes better than in person. I don't know what it is about the energy, or maybe it's singularly focused, but I can walk through some of the 4 questions I asked the horse. We can address some trauma issues. We can address communion, connection, all sorts of different things, even writing if you wanted to on the virtual session, and they're usually about an hour. If it's a lot of trauma stuff, I may break it up into doing shorter sessions, maybe 2 half hours or something like that. And they're really focused specifically on the person, the horse team, you know,
Wow.
your relationship with your horse. Okay, and really teaching you some of these principles is start with the breathing, of course, and then I'll teach you about how to create different energy frequencies, and we'll play with your horse on those, you know, and
Oh,
see which ones
that's
can
amazing because now
help.
you've opened it up to people that, you know, for whatever reason can't get to a gathering and or, you know, if it's the middle of winter and you can't be, you know, or they live in another part of the world. I mean, how wonderful
Hmm.
is technology? How cool is that?
It
So
is cool.
that's on your website if people want more
That's
information about that. And I should mention on your
absolutely.
website, there's a lot of videos where you're talking about all kinds of behaviors and things we can do. We can learn from you. So you've got really a nice website with lots of information that's
Oh,
out there
good.
for people. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, and then I see you have there's a Facebook group if people
Yes.
want to follow that. And so that's all
Right.
great. That's all
Right. And
great.
you can go to my Facebook group. It's Sacred Spaces / Sacred Wisdom. And if you go on there, just answer all the questions they ask in the administrative, or else
Mhm.
the administrator won't let you on if you don't agree to some of
Yeah, I
the
made sure to
terms of
join it
the.
today because I wanna, like, keep following
Oh,
this.
good.
So
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm sure you'll
Okay.
let me in.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. I think I'll go look and make
I'll
sure you get
behave
in.
myself, I promise.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
cool.
no.
Um,
Yeah, this has been really, really wonderful. All it makes me wanna do is go out and start talking to my horses, like, right now and practice the things I've been learning and reading and, try to get this word out. So, again, I recommend where can we find your book? Where can we find your book?
you can find it. A link to it is on my website, but you can also go to Amazon and just look it up there. And
Okay, well,
it's available in the print version, and then I have a audio book also
I'm trying
for
to get
it.
it in focus
So
there.
that looks good. There you
That
go.
looks good.
So I
Okay, oh, wait.
narrated the audio.
Okay, before we go, because I wanted to ask, because Morgan horses, okay, just tell us
Yes.
about your Morgan horses. Do you still have a Morgan horse by any chance, or?
I still have 4 of my original horses that I bred. So I 2 well, 3 of them are Morgans, and then I've got a friend's horse here that's Azteca that stays on
Hmm.
my ranch. But really sad news, I just last month lost my tank horse that I write about in my book.
Oh,
So he just passed, and he was really the inspiration for everything I do. He was so humble and he was so wonderful, about everything he could do. And I have to say that about all of my horses. When you do this kind of awareness of yourself, that every relationship it's different, but it's the same. It's the ease of the have the relationship. Once we learn
mhm.
these relationship principles with the horses. So, when I think of people say a hard horse, and I think I wrote about that as a quote at the end about your hard horse. It's like all of mine were. They were special in their own unique ways, but they were all hard horses.
Oh, exactly. It's like children. You don't love one more
Yeah,
than the other. You love them differently, you know?
right,
So I get
right.
that. Yeah, and I think that I had to put an old mare down. She was 29. So she didn't, she was, her Cushing's had gotten to the point where it was time. And I think they make room. I know it's like she was
Mhm.
ready to go, and she's just made room for whatever else needed to be in that space, if that makes any sense at all. It's always hard to say
Absolutely.
goodbye, but they all mean something. They all came. She was a rescue mare from Forever Morgans out of New York, and we had her what, 13 years in her retirement. She had a
Wow.
very happy life. But I get that.
Oh,
So just a shout out to all the Morgan people out there. We love all the other breeds
yay.
too, but we're just gonna, sisters, Morgans.
Exactly, exactly. Oh,
All right. Well,
fun.
this has been such a pleasure and such a joy, and we're so grateful that you took the time for us today. I want everyone to go get her book, listen to her website, sign up for a session, join me in Wisconsin when I go, or you find out where she's going to be and go see her in person, because I think you and your horse will benefit from it. So thank you, Dr. Susan Fay, for coming. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great.